Good day and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another Live the Fuel show. So, for the newer listeners, a reminder, we're here to fuel your health, your business, and your lifestyle. So I'm pretty excited. I mean, I'm usually pretty excited about podcasting in general, but I'm very excited about bringing on a new guest co-host for you guys today. This gentleman is known around in my circles very well. To the newer listeners who might not understand these keywords out there of LCHF, low carb, high fat, keto, ketogenic, ketosis. Shout out to our boy, Vinny Torres, NSNG, no sugar, no grains. I mean, there's a lot of different things getting tossed out there. But this gentleman is pretty well niched into maybe knowing a few things about this word keto. And let me give you a quick background on him. He is a professor in the Department of Molecular Pharmacology and Physiology at the University of South Florida and research scientist at the Institute for Human and Machine Cognition, IHMC. His lab develops and tests metabolic-based strategies for neurological disorders, cancer, and for enhancing safety and resilience of our military personnel in extreme environments. Hint, hint, maybe some SEALs, maybe some other special forces. So anyway, his research, guys, it's supported by the Office of Naval Research, ONR, Department of Defense, DOD, and other private organizations and foundations. So if you haven't caught on yet, we've name dropped him before on this show. Without further ado, that's right, it is Mr. Dr. Dom D'Agostino. Welcome to the show.
You've got my name right perfectly. Thank you.
I should hope so. I've been listening to you on how many other people's podcasts. So thanks for finally gracing Live the Fuel, man. This is exciting.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate having this platform to talk
Have you ever kept track of how many podcasts you've been on?
I started counting, I made it about a year ago. I have to add to it, but I think I had something like 87 or 89 a year or two ago. So I definitely over 100.
Okay.
Yeah, at some point, maybe closer to, because there's a lot of little ones that I missed because I just did a search to just like dig them up. So probably close to about 150, I think.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, I speak at a podcast conference every year, and something I can pass on to you because I believe in giving more than receiving is I love your site, ketonutrition.org, ladies and gentlemen, and actually for our video feed because we love the YouTube world as well. I'll go ahead and share that right now. Ketonutrition.org. So have you ever thought about building that into like one of your resources on the site? You actually right here, lectures, interviews, and podcasts. Are they all on there?
No, I need to get some more on there. I have some of the major ones on there.
Oh, yeah.
If there's overlap, so I actually try to pick things that if something has overlap, then I hesitate to put it on, but I try to just pick sort of the major ones.
Okay.
And yeah, sometimes I put some other people's on there too at the end. But,
you've been on the Healthcast. He's been on this show as well. Actually, you've probably been on his show a couple times, right? The guy who owns Healthcast?
I think so.
I think you have. He didn't know. He wasn't always called the Healthcast. He had a different joint podcast. Oh God, I can't remember what it was. But anyway, I don't want to distract you. You've been on a lot of podcasts. You do a lot of travel. Actually, a hint for the listeners listening to this now. This will be out in the next month. But you just got back from Australia too.
Yep, I just got back. So
and which conference were you at down there?
Oh man, I flew into Melbourne and then went to Adelaide and then Perth and then Brisbane and then Sydney. And I met with people and gave talks at all those places. I think I gave like 10 talks at least.
Wow, that's
a lot of Q&As. Yeah. Yeah. There's a huge interest. I mean, Australia is amazing. The most keto friendly place I've ever been. The food is amazing, but
why do you think that is?
Well, they do. I mean, they do grow a lot of beef there, and it's all of their beef is pretty much like free range, grass fed. It's a very well off place, and I found it to be very clean, very easy to navigate, very livable. All the cities that I went to were very livable, and they have a pretty big interest in food quality. And although there's like a plant-based camp too that's growing, but the ketogenic diet community is also growing and maybe growing faster. So,
let's pause on that. There's a lot of this new, you call it vegans, vegetarians. Now everybody's using plant-based because they're afraid to bring up that that polarized, some of these polarized titles out there.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be fair, there is plant-based keto ways of life, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And actually, I think our first blog article was on a plant-based ketogenic diet, the very first article that we posted.
Oh, wow.
And since then, I've been taking a lot of notes and pulling out any studies that I can, because I realize that that's an underserved community in the clinical realm for people who want to follow a ketogenic diet for epilepsy or other diseases where it's been proven for, but they lack the options because usually it's a dairy-based and heavy meat-based. But we've kind of putting together strategies to formulate a vegetarian, which is easy, right? Because you have eggs you can use and dairy, just no meats, and vegan, which is completely plant-based, which involves a little more, it probably involves some supplementation of protein isolates or protein supplementation, but you really need to formulate the diet in sort of an engineered way.
Well, I mean, to be fair, isn't that one of basically the more, I call it the more aggressive, I guess, the more committed, the more aggressive plant-based, ergo vegan way couldn't have even been pulled off until supplementation or exogenous, supplements came into existence, right? Because one of the biggest things is B12.
It would be hard. I've communicated with some strict vegans, and they assured me their B12 status, but I haven't seen the blood work to indicate that. But yeah, it is challenging. And even the people who are very well informed on their diet will admit that a B12 supplementation is necessary. So,
okay. So you are a big fan of obviously you're a doctor, you're a scientist, you're a big fan of backing things up with tests.
Yeah. If someone tells me something, it's like, I do a lot of testing. So I haven't been sick in like 10 years. Maybe I had a flu or a cold over the last 10 years, maybe once or twice.
And it usually lasts, 24 hours?
Yeah. And I did get a little stomach bug on the last day there. So, I mean, my immune system is relatively pretty strong. So I kind of fasted on the way back, and I'm just bouncing back from that. But yeah, I'm in that process right now of recovering from just getting back from.
It's funny we're talking about that. You basically did some fasting while traveling. And it's funny because I'm leaving on for a couple of days of travel through upstate New York over the next, actually in a couple of days. And I love to nowadays time my fasts, or if you want to call them intermittent fasts, but I'm actually going with a full 48-hour supported fast cycle. And I do these like quarterly. And I started figuring that stuff out back in 2010 and experimenting with it. And now I was like doing it when I'm traveling. It's easier. I don't have to worry about finding restaurants to go out to and all this other stuff. And people are like, how do you do that while you travel? I'm like, well, I'm only doing it stateside. To be fair, you just hinted that you did it while you were traveling back from Australia.
Yeah. I mean, it makes it kind of easy it makes it a little bit awkward because, if you're on a good international carrier and they're always offering you food and you're like, no thanks.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll do a coffee or two in the morning before, and just maybe some tea and water. But I feel so much better, especially traveling fasted. And it's so easy to do too. I mean, once you're adapted to burning fat and ketones for fuel, as opposed to being addicted or on the vicious cycle of feeding carbs every couple hours. So
let's pause on that, because obviously there's some newer listeners and maybe they're not completely dialed into all these key words we've just hit on. We're hitting on fasting, we're hitting on keto, we're hitting on, meat-based versus plant-based. So let's just kind of, how can we help? You've done this so many times. How can we help sum this up for people that are newer to this type of content?
Sure. Well, I mean, the differences between the diets, like a real
because
like what is the ketogenic diet and why would people follow it?
Right, because I have people all the time. They're like, "Well, do I have to fast to live ketogenic?" I mean, and then I name drop people like Dr. Jason Fung. If you want to understand more about fasting, he's done a decent job writing up things. I mean, I learned about fasting, intermittent fasting, before I even knew who Dr. Jason Fung was. But I mean, I always remind people like, well, no, you technically don't have to. I found that it helps you get you right back into that fat adapted state. So I guess, let's help explain some of that, this lifestyle that you and I are pretty well versed in.
Yeah. Well, I'll explain like my personal, and I think maybe it may relate to some
Hmm.
people. I grew up studying nutrition. I never heard anything. I mean, fasting, ketogenic diets. They were the things to avoid at all costs, right? So, I went to Rutgers University. Actually, grew up in Allentown, New Jersey.
Well,
So
I live in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
I know Allentown. Yeah, actually, I did a lot of my dive training in Dutch Springs, which is in Nazareth near Bethlehem.
Yep. My friends train for triathlons there.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. Did a lot of my diving there. So anyway, got into nutrition and actually I was very much into mountain biking. I think you're into mountain biking too.
I
And
was just degreasing the chains on our bikes from a ride yesterday.
really, wow, yeah. And I used to actually mountain bike up that way near like Elk Mountain and some areas up there.
Yeah.
Uh,
You're in my backyard, man.
oh yeah, yeah. So I was big into that scene. Lots of Gatorade, Cytomax. I don't know if you remember that. If
I
they
remember
still
those
make that
days.
stuff, I don't know if they
I
still.
don't think they make Cytomax anymore, but
Oh no.
when I lived in Colorado, did some racing. They were into everybody was promoting hammer strength and all this junk.
Yeah. I mean, it had actually, that got me interested in brain energy metabolism because it had alpha L polylactate, which I later went on to study brain energy metabolism. And
Hmm.
because, long story short, I majored in nutrition biology, then physiology and neuroscience for my PhD, but then I went on to my postdoc and studying seizures. And I got interested in, well, I was funded by the Department of Defense to develop neuroprotective strategies that could be used by military personnel as a countermeasure against extreme environments.
Right.
And one of the things was to fuel the brain with an alternative energy substrate. And I got interested in lactate. And then ketones really drew my attention because some of the early animal work the military did on fasting, showing
Hmm.
that they could withstand like all these extreme environments with fasting. It could delay oxygen toxicity, which I was funded to study. So I became very engaged and interested in understanding how does the brain transition from glucose to using ketones. I didn't even know this was possible. And I went to a fairly upper level nutrition science dietetic program and even trained as a neuroscientist and didn't even know that the brain could use ketones. So I was sort of angry, like I wasn't given this information. So I connected with different leading scientists. George Cahill's work at Harvard really engaged me as fasted subjects for 40 days and basically determined that their brains had the metabolic flexibility to use ketones as an energy source. So in 2008 or 9, I became interested in doing this stuff myself. And I started fasting, and then I got interested in the ketogenic diet, and then using this, transitioning my drug-based research actually into nutrition and nutritional supplement research for preventing seizures.
Okay.
And because the science was very strong, I actually, like everybody else, I thought the ketogenic diet was a fad diet until I looked at the history, until I went to PubMed and started pulling up like legitimate peer-reviewed publications and connecting with people at like Johns Hopkins. So I sort of reinvented my whole career path and brought back nutrition into my program and uh, and realized the benefits of basically fueling your body off a different fuel source. And I really was under the impression that I needed to spike my glucose every couple hours to optimize brain health and performance and strength and all these things. And over the years, through experimentation on myself and in animal models, and now we have human, studies, I'm realizing that there are many advantages clinically, operationally, for military personnel, maybe astronauts, and also from a lifestyle perspective of employing and implementing nutritional ketosis. I tend to do it continuously. Ideally, it may be best employed on an intermittent basis, but I think that's ultimately the end users, needs to determine what works best for them.
I like how you keyworded that as nutritional, ketosis and nutritional fasting, for example. Like a lot of people, there's so many versions of fasting nowadays. I'll just leave. I mean,
Yeah.
it's important to clarify these keywords because like the people just go Google things and they think all of it's the same. For example, I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I think it is important, though, to measure. And once you achieve an elevation of ketones above zero point 0.5 millimolar, and if say you get to 1 millimolar, we know at just 1 millimolar, you're giving your brain a 10% energy boost, right? On Stephen Cunane, he's up in Canada. He's done some glucose and PET scan, done PET imaging using a glucose tracer and also a ketone tracer, and can show that the brain can use both fuels. As we age, we tend to use glucose more inefficiently, whereas as we age, the ketone utilization of the brain generally does not decrease much. So that, in a way, that ketone is not, it's acting as an alternative energy substrate that can help restore brain energy metabolism. And we think that might be happening. That's why it's so effective in epilepsy and other neurometabolic disorders. And when we're exercising or under extreme conditions, fuel flow to the brain becomes a limiting factor. And so elevating ketones, you could be done fasting, ketogenic diet, or supplementation, or a combination of all three, becomes a way that we can sort of hack our bodies and really give us an edge under many different scenarios. May not be ideal for all people, but it's definitely effective for the things that I study.
Well, I mean, I didn't realize all the studies that were actual studies. I think that's important to pause on, right? Actual documented, legitimate studies are out there. I mean, one thing that really blew my mind was working with Vinny and the Fata documentary project, that film, learning about Jim Abrams, for example, and, his son's foundation, Charlie Foundation. Like, I had no idea that foundation even existed. I didn't know the severity that his own son had suffered with through all of the seizures and everything else that you've hinted at here. And it's like, well, that's all tied back to brain health. And they didn't think his son would ever survive. And now, he's, I mean, right when you go to their main website, they show him as a young adult, talking and reading a book to kids. Here we go. Let me screen share real quick. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's Charlie. So it's like, well, clearly something must have worked.
I know Charlie. I've met Charlie, and I know Jim very well. And actually, when I did my TED Talk, I connected with Jim and asked him if I can, use his story in my TED Talk. And
really, wow.
Yeah. So we actually, I actually do create some educational content for the Charlie Foundation.
Okay.
And we highlight the Charlie Foundation at the Metabolic Health Summit, which is a big conference that we have that discusses all the science and all the clinical applications. And we have a lot of influencers and companies and stuff there too. But we do a gala fundraiser, and part of the proceeds, JP Sears is actually some of the entertainment here. I don't know if you know him, comedian. He part of the proceeds actually goes to support the Charlie Foundation. So
that's awesome.
Actually, the Charlie Foundation was the first website. I don't know how it comes up in a Google search now, but when you Google the ketogenic diet back in like 2008 or 9, when I first looked it up, the Charlie Foundation came up, and I got very interested in. I connected with the Charlie Foundation supported clinics. One was Johns Hopkins. So that sent me down a trajectory of using this approach for oxygen toxicity seizures, which are tonic-clonic seizures. And then I discovered, the movie First Do No Harm by Meryl Streep. I watched that, and I was like, okay, this seems like a legitimate approach. Maybe I can bring nutrition back into my actual, funded research. I just have to get this stuff funded. So, pitched it in grants and presentations and things like that. Ultimately, I ended up getting funded, and I was studying oxygen toxicity for a while, but it really wasn't funded to do ketogenic diet research until maybe the last 10 years.
You said that was oxygenized toxicity?
It's called central nervous system oxygen toxicity, and it's a limitation of hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which has 14 different FDA-approved applications. It's also a limitation for special operations diving that use closed circuit rebreathers, like the Draeger rebreathers. At 50 feet of seawater, within 10 minutes, you can have a seizure, with oxygen toxicity. So typically these are used for shallow dives, just to evade the enemy. There's no bubbles. A limitation is that the high oxygen is a stimulant to the brain. And if at hyperbaric pressure, the concentration of oxygen increases with each breath you're taking.
Wow.
more oxygen in, and that can cause a tonic-clonic seizure. We have no way of preventing or predicting these things. So that's my research program has, a lot of it has been focused on that. And nutritional ketosis, either with fasting or ketogenic diet or ketone supplementation in the form of ketone esters, are very potent strategies for preventing these seizures. And it's really a result of, there's many things going on, but it's giving the brain an alternative fuel that allows the brain to function under these extreme environments. And it also changes some of the neuropharmacology of the brain in ways that's, we're just understanding now.
So in all these years, have you kind of changed your general summation behind, I guess, seizures in general? I mean, because I know a lot of people have kids being born, kind of like Charlie Abrams, for example, and they have these, actually, I can tell you, one of my old high school friends, he happens to be on the West Coast now, and I saw him post something about his kid and seizures, and he was at his wit's end. They're trying everything. And I immediately just said, I'm like, hey, when you get a free second while you're in the hospital, like, go read up on the Charlie Foundation. It might be the one thing that could get you in the right direction. I can't guarantee it, but I mean, what are your thoughts around this? Is it all just nutrition, right? Because we are hinting about obviously so many triggers from nutrition, how we feel the body, how we feel the brain. And obviously I don't know how that addresses kids being born already having these issues. I never had a seizure issue. So clearly some are biologically more prone than others.
Oh, absolutely. And, the etiology or the cause is largely unknown for most seizure types. We studied genetic types of seizures or disorders, I should say, that have seizures: Angelman syndrome, glucose transporter type 1 deficiency syndrome, like things with big names, pyruvate dehydrogenase deficiency syndrome, Kabuki syndrome, which is a genetic disorder where the ketones are believed to be epigenetic regulators that can influence and potentially suppress seizures. So I have a PhD student studying that now. And Gervais syndrome, Deuce syndrome, there's a number, even Rett syndrome, we think. So there are, what's interesting about nutritional ketosis or a well-formulated ketogenic diet is that it seems to suppress seizures independent of the etiology. So it seems to work for most seizure types. But the ketogenic diet is only employed by an epileptologist or a neurologist once at least 2 seizure drugs have failed. So they try one, they try another. The interesting thing, as you talked about, you mentioned Charlie. Charlie followed the diet, weaned himself off after a year or two, and then the seizures never came back. Whereas in many cases, when you stop drug therapy, you have a rebound effect and you have more seizures.
Right.
So now that fascinated me more than anything else, because that was basically implying that the ketogenic diet was not only correcting and suppressing seizures, but was repairing whatever dysregulation was happening in the brain that was contributing, whether it was metabolic homeostasis, neurotransmitter levels, a wiring problem. We don't know because the etiology can be different with different types of seizures, but it was fixing it for some people, what they call the super responders, and not all people respond like that. It's about 15%. But of the 2/3 of the patients that respond to the ketogenic diet, 1/3 of them, they have 90% seizure control. Like if a drug did that, it would be a blockbuster drug. It would be far better than any anticonvulsant drug that we know about.
Wow.
If a drug could do that. So no, I don't think any neurologist would argue. I don't even think pharmaceutical companies would argue about that. What I just described as the efficacy of the ketogenic diet. And if a drug could mimic that efficacy, it would be the other drugs would basically be irrelevant. It would be so powerful of a drug that this would be the first line approach. But it's still, because it's nutrition and it's a dietary therapy and you have to change your lifestyle and the food you eat, it's still grossly underutilized. It's much more accepted and it's used a lot more now just because it's gained a lot of not only science behind it, but a lot of publicity behind it. But it's still grossly underutilized from my point of view. And now we have ways that we're understanding the ketogenic diet can be formulated in less restrictive ways with more protein, We can get actually the carbohydrates in the form of fibrous vegetables. We can add more of that in, and also ketone supplementation. And studies, still need to evaluate that for epilepsy, but they're ongoing now.
Well, I know you're obviously a big advocate for ketone supplementation, because that's one of the key things that you've been able to help strongly influence. And there's a lot of back and forth. Like people are like, well, do I look into it? Do I not? And obviously, I know you originally, correct me if I'm wrong, focused on that design and that creation for the military, right?
Yeah, I was mostly interested in the diet, and I still do the diet, and I'm an advocate of the diet. But they were more interested in the ketogenic diet in a pill. So I was like, okay, let me try to do this here. So I reached out to many people in academia. Interestingly enough, I guess you could say, it was Patrick Arnold who sort of had a bit of a history in performance enhancing compounds. He was the person who was actually able to synthesize it. And actually just came out last week in an article in the Atlantic, and it's got a lot of publicity, how I teamed up with him and he helped synthesize the ketone ester for me. So he was like my clandestine chemist for developing this stuff. But he developed an agent that was very powerful, and now we're using that in a variety of different studies right now.
So, I mean, I haven't looked into that in a while. Is that something that is at least accessible to the general public, or is it specialized? Like, where's that at these days?
Yeah, so you can get ketone supplements on the market, right? So they're on Amazon, you can buy them anywhere. So the ketone supplements that are on the market take a ketone body, which is one of them would be beta hydroxybutyrate, and ionically combine that ketone body to a mineral or an electrolyte. So that could be sodium, potassium, calcium, or magnesium. And it essentially becomes a powder, and you can mix this up, consume it, and your ketones are elevated. But the elevation that you can get with ketone salts are maybe about 1 millimolar. But I did mention that gives your brain about a 10% energy boost,
sure.
Right? So the ketone esters that Patrick developed for me, and then I continue to use, they can boost your ketones 3, 4, 5 millimolar, and they're more in line with they're in a gray area. So you can't really call them a drug. It might stretch it to call them a food. I think we try to do that to get it past FDA regulation, but I think more studies need to be done to look at the safety of these compounds. I feel that they're safe, but I think to be safe, because they're going to be used in kids, they're going to be used for different disorders.
Well, again, you're hinting at these are for specialized cases, though, right? Like a regular everyday Joe or out there just looking to hack life. I personally believe, like, listen, you hinted at it earlier in the show, right? It's like, okay, explore a ketogenic lifestyle. Look at your nutrition. And let's pause on that too, by the way. It's not just nutrition. It's, what are your circadian rhythm? What is your sleep cycles? What is your rest and recovery? Yeah. What is your healthy lifestyle as a whole? But a lot of people are always looking for that turnkey, what's the magic pill? Unfortunately.
Yeah. And I'm a big whole foods person. I mean, before we got on, we live on a farm, and we're in the process of transitioning the farm to do regenerative agriculture. We want to, I'm a whole foods based person that really strives not to use supplementation. I do. I supplement some things, but I take a lot less supplements than I used to take. I had a whole cabinet full of supplements, and I have like maybe
Same here.
4 things I take now. But I think that, I actually enjoy achieving beneficial nutritional ketosis through diet alone, and then intermittently use supplements, ketone supplements, under certain circumstances. Especially, I test a lot of things. And I test different formulations.
Do you do a lot of your own N1 stuff?
Yeah. So a lot of time, yeah, I'm actually, if I'm taking ketone supplements, I'm actually doing it to test. Like, I'm doing it to evaluate a different formulation or the tolerability or palatability or something different. So I do that pretty much on a weekly basis. Even when I'm traveling, I'll do testing. And I enjoy that. And I like this idea of bringing an alternative energy substrate to the market. My Great Dane here is Scooby here.
Okay, I've got a big
And
coonhound in the other room.
yeah, and my dogs are keto too. So we actually, just give them sort of raw meat, liver, a lot of organ meats,
Oh,
and fats, and things like that.
I love the fact you brought up liver. I haven't bought liver in a while, and I don't know what. I just all of a sudden just had taken a break from organ meat, and it's one of the most nutrient dense things you can get.
Yeah.
And I happened to be at a local farmer's market, and this guy had, big flash frozen packs of chicken livers. I was like, you know what? Let me grab a pack. Man, I gave them to Calvin. He would not leave my side. He's like, oh, when am I getting more?
Yeah, my wife is Hungarian, and they eat. I went over there, and they gave me like a brain on a plate. Like they're eating brains and kidneys and
Wow.
liver. I mean, that's what they have every night. So it was a little strange, and it was about the same time I met my wife and actually started doing ketogenic research about the same time. So so now she got me to incorporate a lot more organ meat into the diets, and even when we grew up hunting and stuff, we would, the liver was like, you give to the dogs. We would kind of save, if we shot a deer, we'd give the liver to dogs or kidney and stuff like that. But we would never think about like eating the deer liver. We would just keep, dress the deer when we got home and just keep the meat stuff. But now that would be like golden. I mean, and if you cook it the right way, it tastes really good too.
Tie it back to history. I mean, I underestimated I shouldn't underestimate. I basically had forgotten some great knowledge until a few years back. I got to serve as a wildland firefighter. I left the corporate space, did that for a few years. And I had probably 6 to 7 fellow firefighters on my crew from different tribes in and around North America. Uh-huh. So, and they brought up is like, oh yeah, it's not just in movies, dude. Like, yeah, he's like, it's considered wasteful if you would hunt and then slaughter an animal and not use the organ meat. He's like, yes, it was very glorified in the movies, somebody in a movie like biting raw into a bison liver, but he said, you can't beat the nutrient density.
Yeah, especially B12 and B vitamins. So, liver is probably one of I think liver, maybe oysters and like mussels, I mean.
Okay, now you're talking.
Yeah, you can just, if you want to go vegan or vegetarian, if you just want to do it like 6 days a week and just have like a tiny bit of liver or like shellfish or oysters or something like that, you could quickly correct your nutritional deficiencies because they're so nutrient dense, especially in micronutrients and minerals.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's scary is, again, I'm not here to tell anybody how to live their life. One of the goals of this show is to just at least share as much knowledge as we can around the balance of health in your business and your lifestyle. And again, the business could also be, you could be just a corporate cubicle monkey like it used to be years ago and realize, man, I grew up on a farm. So it's funny you have a farm nowadays. Like I grew up in a farm. I was born in Flemington, New Jersey. My dad had a dairy farm down there.
Yeah.
And now I think it's a housing development. We did not benefit from that sale. But
yeah, I know Flemington well. I used to drive through there to get to Allentown, PA, actually.
Yeah. Well, because Allentown, New Jersey is to the south, right? From there?
Yes, Allentown, New Jersey to the south, yeah.
There you go. And it's funny because I drove by and I'm like, oh yeah, Allentown. That's funny. So obviously ours is bigger up here, but yeah, it's interesting though how, again, people have these different lifestyle choices. If you choose to go that route, all I ask people to do is please do some research. Like there's a quote I've used many times in this show. I'm interested to hear your voice of opinion on it. But my guys, like we're all personally and collectively accountable for our results. But I had someone on the show a while back and he said, listen, you need to become your own inner physician in life. The sooner we all get on the bandwagon with that and stop just blindly trusting a general MD. And no offense, I have friends that are general MDs. I respect their passion, their commitment. My wife is not a human doctor. She's an equine horse vet doctor and doctor of chiropractic therapy for large animal and small animal. But I mean, your level of education, your commitment, all those years, I totally am blown away by it. But I always remind people, like, guys, like taking that accountability for your own health and doing some of the studies and the research, that's one of the biggest things I try and get people over that initial hurdle is like, they're like, how do you know what you know? I'm like, because I started studying this a long time ago and I just still don't know everything. We're still trying to figure it all out. But what are your thoughts on that? Like people becoming their own inner physician, starting to at least do some reading, do some studying, listen to an audiobook, all these variables.
I think it's absolutely essential. When I started studying the ketogenic diet, I started doing it. And I remember presenting at more of a mainstream neurology conference. And, as I'm talking about the approach that I'm developing for these types of seizures, and I had mentioned that, I started following the ketogenic diet and I'm about at that clinical level now. And like people were kind of taken back because they thought I had epilepsy. But this is before the ketogenic diet got popular. And it's like I had, people question, they didn't do it publicly, but they came up to me after. It's like, I see, it's so important you're managing your disorder. I was like, no, I'm just doing this because I want to understand the ketogenic diet. And then through self-experimentation, experientially, I started noticing some of the benefits, not in the beginning, but in particular, that my metabolism has always been very fast. So I had to always shovel food into my mouth, every couple hours. And
Oh, yeah, that's me.
I was on a low fat kick. So I was doing a lot of, fish and rice and things like that. And I would always get hungry. But I started really getting the benefits. So, and the more I started reading about it, I was probably a little biased because I started reading about all the benefits of ketones from like people like Dr. Richard Veach or Mark Mattson from the NIH. And this literature it was in high impact peer reviewed journals, but it wasn't really referenced that much. But I knew intuitively that this was giving my brain like an alternative energy, and that the ketones actually were more sort of biologically available. They could generate more energy than glucose could. And it also had all these interesting, effects at reducing reactive oxygen species and turning on gene expression. So I felt, whether it was biased or not, I was doing my body a good thing in 2009 and 10. And the lessons that I learned from experimenting with different types of ketogenic diets and later ketone supplementation and keeping detailed records of my blood work and also then transitioning to actually doing, the actual research in the lab, I was able to learn from the animals and then learn from myself and apply, information in both ways. So what I would learn from myself, the formulas that were working for me, I would apply them experimentally, and new things that we were testing in the lab that I was kind of uneasy taking at first until we validated their efficacy or their safety, I would then try on myself. So it's been a very surreal experience too, to see a diet that really wasn't talked about or mostly marginalized become so popular. If you just do a Google search, it skyrockets. And if, from my perspective, if you go to PubMed, you see that skyrocketing. They almost overlap. So the PubMed starts to go up first, and then you see the Google follow after. And I kind of believe, and I hope that the science, and there's a lot of misinformation out there too, but the science is really driving the popularity.
I agree with that. And actually, it's funny because earlier in the show, you mentioned, like, when you, as you just hinted, when you Google ketogenic diet, the Charlie Foundation used to be very high ranking. Well, actually, the good thing is, and last time I checked, I bet it's still at least on the, yeah, it is. Hold on. Let's screen share to prove this to the video watchers.
It got knocked off a while ago, and hopefully
it's not top 3, but
back. Okay.
Halfway down right here.
Oh, very good.
So they're still ranking on the first page of results. That's good.
Yeah, that's very good.
And well, there's a few other, obviously Wiki's always going to do their thing.
Yeah. And then they changed the analytics, right? Didn't they, for like health websites? I heard a lot of influencers out there were sort of complaining that Google, they changed the analytics to exclude a lot of the sort of influencer health websites.
Yes, which is funny because it's like, well, who's controlling the influence on, like, it's same thing goes on the Facebook world too. I tell people all the time, like, listen, in the end, Google's going to change what they want to change. Facebook's going to change what you want to change. All you could do is just try and stay up with it, stay fresh with it, and just keep rolling with it. Because in the end, content is king. So keep putting out the right content, and the ranking will keep shifting. It's a never-ending process. Mm-hmm. It's frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Yeah, just keep putting out good content, and that'll gravitate and work its way to the top and sort of outcompete the people who are not putting out good content. And Yeah, that's something I try to do that with the website, and kind of managing a lot of different things, but I try to consistently put up, good content and
Yeah,
people.
I noticed. I didn't realize you had a team. I was actually before the show. I was under the again
Yeah,
ketonutrition.org people, but when you click
yeah,
under the about, obviously there you are, but then
yeah,
there's the wife,
my wife, yeah.
and but then
She's
I didn't
also a
realize you had a head
fact.
writer.
Yeah. It's Christy helps on so many projects. Yeah, she's been like a godsend to us. That's my student, Andrew Kutnick. He's now Dr. Kutnick.
Wow.
He's type 1 diabetic and also does nutritional ketosis, and gave a TEDx talk on nutritional ketosis. You can look him up. Fantastic TEDx talk. And Vin, too, is a new writer who's super educated and passionate about this. And we're excited to work more with him. And I have a lot of other
And he's
students.
an RN.
Yes. All
Wow.
right. Yep. Yeah.
I love this.
Check
See
out the
this.
blog, too. The blog has they help contribute a lot of the articles on the blog.
Well, and that's what I like. I've had countless people try and get to be able to contribute to my blog and my site. And I'm like, you know what? My blog's not that active because the podcast is more active, right? So I already have tons of content going out thanks to the podcast. The secondary blog is just another feed. But I said, if and when I ever allow somebody to guest write, it better be the right person, the right credentials, the right background, because I don't want to accidentally stand for the wrong thing with the right person of alignment. And we've used this quote in this show. You'll appreciate this. It's like, you are the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, look at that when it comes to your inner circle, because these are people that you're trusting your name with too. So.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah. And actually we're thinking about doing a podcast, but now I think we're just going to start a YouTube thing at first to just answer questions, because we get hundreds of questions and I could just talk a lot faster than I could type. I'm a horrible typer. So I can just kind of rapid fire, do like 10 questions every week or 20 or whatever, and start, posting that on YouTube.
If one of your people on that team is besides writing, the other hack here is do what you and I are doing right here, right now.
Yeah.
Way back on episode 50, I left Skype and I started using Zoom. And I'm like, listen, if we're going to take the time to have a conversation, let's give love to both worlds. So we do audio and video, because when I get done with you today, hit stop and it processes the video. So I've already got a video file that without any editing, I can just put right up on YouTube. So that's the other thing to consider too. It's like you could also do all the video and then have an editor later pull all the audio tracks out and repurpose it as a podcast. So don't worry about it. It'll all happen. If you feel like doing both, you can do both. You want to start with one, start with one.
Yeah, I need to start doing, because what you're doing is providing an enormous research, it's an awesome platform, but it's an enormous resource for people out there who are intimidated to go read like a scientific journal or go to PubMed or something like that. But I've had so many people contact me because they saw a particular podcast and, their son had epilepsy or they had cancer or something like that. And every morning I wake up, I don't know, I have usually over 100 to like 100 to 150 emails after the filter. And then I quickly go through them and kind of, kind of delete the ones that I can't respond to. But I just every day I get dozens of emails from people and they're not reading the publications we're putting out. I could like do no podcasts and just do publications and no one would know this research. So I believe that, these podcasts and information that you're putting out is actually saving lives. Like even people with like type 2 diabetes and just who are just overweight, they're adding years to their life, just employing nutritional approaches to manage their health.
I learned that a long time ago. I was a huge consumer of podcasts. And then it got to the point where I'm like, I have an idea. I have a platform. I believe in this other age old quote, like, you can acquire all the knowledge in the world and claim you're wise, but the only point of true wisdom is being able to pass that knowledge on. So it's like, great, we have all these great ideas in our head, or we have the ability to get connected and get networked. And it's like, let's get those voices to the forefront. And you've been on countless podcasts, but like, what if there's that one person in my audience who's never heard of you? And it's like, oh my God, that's the research that I've been looking for. So if you can get through to one person, how powerful is that? That's how I look at it. Absolutely. So yeah, obviously I'd rather get through to thousands, which we do. So, but it's like that, it's a law of averages too. You're a science guy. So it's like, listen, man, sometimes you got to keep going, and then boom, it pops.
Yep.
So, I mean, I take a personal accountability too. My father and my mother raised me on a farm, and then we moved out of farming, and my dad and my younger brother still are organic cattle brokers to this day in central Pennsylvania. So we're still tied into it. I mean, I literally just got an email from I buy in on a cow every year. It's raised an hour and a half from here. And they just emailed me saying, hey, it's heading to slaughter. So in 20 days hang time for flavor, we'll have everything butchered and packaged. Here's your bill. Like, so I now buy in, and just like when I was a kid, like I went back to the old days. I tell my dad this all the time. My dad became type 2 diabetic like 10 years ago. And I said, Dad, you were never diabetic. This was something that you triggered in your lifestyle. I was like, let's try and revert back to when I was a kid and the way you raised me. we had a 1/4-acre garden when I was a kid. So I had a 20 hen chicken house. I would sell eggs on the side of the road. And then when they would stop laying, we would butcher the chickens for meat for winter. My mom would take all the excess vegetables. She would can them into the mason jars, the sealing process. And everything was fresh. It was, like, back to your point, Whole Foods, man. Like,
Great, you had that background.
Yeah. So it's like I had an epiphany one day. I'm like, wait, I'm just going to go back in time and just do what I did when I was a kid. But I mean, nobody in my family listens to me. I mean, it is what it is.
Hopefully, I mean, you're convincing your dad, he's, the drug therapy is what they prescribe, but it's really a dietary disease. So it doesn't make sense to treat a dietary disease with drugs. It makes sense to treat a dietary disease with diet. And it's lifestyle, it's all the things that you mentioned in the beginning, but I think with type 2 diabetes, it's largely nutrition.
Oh yeah. And obviously it's harder as you age to reverse it or turn back the time, so to speak. I truly believe that biologically we can reprogram, and I'm not a scientist. That's just from my observations. I've seen it. I've helped other people impact it. I tell people all the time, I'm like, dude, I'm not born from like epic genetics, if that's what you want to call it, because I'm 6'4", and right now I'm at 190. I'm trying to get back to 195, but I've never been overweight. Someone's like, oh, you just had the lucky draw. I'm like, dude, everybody in my family is overweight because of their nutrition and their lifestyle choices. So I just chose not to go down those routes, take accountability, do the studying, do the research, self-proclaimed geek about health nut. So that's why I love rapping with guys like you on the show, because yes, you're at the extreme level, right? You're doing the hardcore research, but people need to find out more about you guys, because whether it's my show or somebody else's show, it's that if we get, like I said earlier, if you get through to 1 or 2 people, start taking accountability, do the research, listen to another podcast, go get an audio book. Actually, what was one of the books you recommend on your site? I can't remember.
There's a few.
A ketogenic book.
Ketogenic book. There's a big one that I buy for all my students is The Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Performance.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Eric Kossoff for clinical, he has the ketogenic diet for epilepsy and other neurological disorders.
You actually have a lot of books listed on here, actually, here.
Yeah. The one I wrote a foreword to, First Do No Harm, and I highly recommend that for people interested in cancer.
Yeah, here we go.
Not that book, but I have quite a few books.
No, and this is what I appreciate.
The top book is a really good book, that Ketogenic Diet, Metabolic Therapies. It's basically like a textbook of all the different, that's Oxford University Press. It's very detailed. I mean, it's very scientific. Mm-hmm. The one below, it's very good. The Ketogenic Bible.
Oh yeah. I've not read that one.
It's pretty good. Yeah, it's very good.
Do you find that's a little bit more digestible for the non-science minded people?
Yeah, it's very comprehensive. Jake, Dr. Wilson, and Dr. Lowry did a great job.
Yeah, and obviously I've had all of these. Eric Westman, he was in the movie Fat documentary, so he was more knowledgeable than I realized. I was like, wow.
yeah, very knowledgeable.
Yeah, you got some great. See, this is what I appreciate about your site. I tell people all the time, because I do online marketing. I'm like, guys, like, it may take time for Google to catch on to content, but content is king. We said it earlier, right? Put great content out, be consistent, but also make sure your site is not just a sell all. Make sure it's a place people can go for a resource. I could look at his tools, his suggested books. It's not just where you've been. You've actually broken things down by diabetes, by cancer, by epilepsy. Yeah, I love it. This is great.
Yeah, and the website's kind of like a work in progress. So we have a lot of work to do on it, but it's just it's hopefully evolving in the right directions. So yeah, we're working on it.
Well, I'm giving you a thumbs up because I
Thank
tell
you.
people all the
I
time, like,
appreciate that.
you could sit here and get that guilty conscience, or then you get the classic quote of paralysis by analysis. You know, you're
Yeah,
sitting here just over analyzing, like, well, just wait and put it up. Maybe no, let's change it, guys. Like, there's no such thing as perfection. So
yeah,
just get it up and be prepared to do some edits and do some tweaks. And you know, again, it's supposed to be a lifelong mission, right?
yep, yep.
So I something new that happened this past year, and this help everything you're doing. I truly believe you're leaving behind a powerful legacy with your research. So I'll go ahead and pat you on the back because, you know, some of us are afraid to do it to ourselves. But I learned that from another great coach of mine a while back. He says, "Guy, he's like, again, he's like wisdom, right? Knowledge." He's like, pass it on. He said,
Mhm.
that's a true legacy to live by, is acquire the best stuff, get it out there, put it out there, help other people find it. And if you can save a few lives or help people live a better lifestyle moving forward, I think we're making the right impacts.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah,
well, listen, it's already been an hour. I can't believe it.
that
Wow,
was
time flies.
fast. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to respect your time. Plus, I have another show coming up. But I mean, you got so much going on. So, what is there anything new and exciting coming? Like anything new, kind of dropping in coming into 2020?
Yeah, I would tell people to check out Metabolic Health Summit. And I think I have a link to that on
Yeah, we'll put that into
ketonutrition.org.
the blog notes too.
Yeah, that's going to be basically, it's like the Super Bowl for all the stuff we're talking about. So for ketogenic diet, as it pertains to like clinical, but also like the everyday person and the basic science too. And yeah, if you're interested in this, definitely come there. There's going to be a lot of influencers there.
It's
So
in
we try to
LA.
make it's deeply like scientific and also deeply clinical, but we have an aspect of it where it's very entrepreneurial. So there's
Oh,
a lot of networking going on. There's a lot of, influencers there. There's the Charlie Foundation is going to be there. Everybody who's anybody in the space is going to be there. And we rotate the speakers like every year. So a
well, how
lot of
many years has this been going on now?
so we did the first one here at University of South Florida, and then it grew to be too big, even though we didn't advertise. So
Oh, you got Rob Wolf there too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
And you had to move out of Florida. Now you went to the West Coast.
yeah, well, we have to have it there. Yeah, it's just too big to have here.
Okay.
We just don't have the venue, the space for it. So and we had to turn people away, and we're not even advertising for it. So everybody just wants to come. So we're going to have it there. We have great entertainment. We have amazing speakers as usual.
Yeah.
So
You got a
yeah,
heck of a line. Is this the full lineup already on the site, or is it gonna be more added?
I think we have some more speakers like on panels and things like that. But yeah, that's we can only fit so many speakers. And if there's people that that you're wondering why they're not there, it's probably because we had them last year or the year before, and there's so many people that want to speak, we have to rotate them. So, but that's we only have enough room for a certain amount of people.
I love it. This is cool.
Yeah.
Admittedly, I didn't even know about this, and I follow all the keto stuff.
Oh,
And
cool. Yeah, we got to
there you go.
advertise more. Yeah.
You know, like, oh wait, how did I miss out on that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is great. Well, so listen, Dom, I always ask my guest host to kind of help close the show out, and it's not nothing crazy, but what are some final all-encompassing words you want to leave behind to some. Basically, I'm guaranteeing you it's going to be a percentage of this audience that never even met you before. Now they did. So, but is there an all-encompassing message you're putting out there as we close out 2019 and move towards 2020?
All-encompassing message. I don't know, but
Or just some final words you want to leave behind?
yeah, you know what? I was asked that on a recent podcast, and I'm a scientist and I'm a data-driven person, and do experiments in the lab. But the thing that I think is really the cornerstone of my health is really good relationships. With my wife, with my friends, with family, and to really like prioritize those relationships in addition to learning, in addition to nutrition, everything like that. And I think that's key. And I think you focus on balance, right? And I think you have to take a step back and look at what's important and really put that at the top. And then your passion for everything else will just come through, you know. So I think for me, for my own health, mental health, and just health as a whole person, to really prioritize those relationships is key.
I love it. Listen, hang tight. I want to give you a proper goodbye off the air.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Dominic D'Agostino. All right. I promise you, great guest co-host, and he knocked it out of the park. Again, make sure you check out Metabolic Health Summit. That's metabolichealthsummit.com. Make sure you check out ketonutrition.org. And sounds like a site that's always going to be growing and always changing. And remember, as he just kind of closes out with here, I actually 100% agree. All right. Our relationships are crucial. And you are the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So focus on those relationships, keep them close, keep them healthy. And one of his other final words he left in there was stay passionate. So, all right. Thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, we're here to fuel your health, your business, and your lifestyle. And Dominic definitely helped us do that today. So thanks for tuning in. Remember, you too can live the fuel, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.